Expired film is always unpredictable. But what happens when the film expired almost a century ago? Can you still get an image? I decided to find out by shooting with the oldest rolls I could find. This project taught me a lot about film photography and took me on one of the most exciting and frustrating journeys I've had in a long time. It all started when one of my subscribers sent me some film he found in an attic. These rolls had been sitting there for decades. Some expired in the 1940s and 50s. Expired film can sometimes give weird, dreamy results. But film this old, nobody could tell me if it would even work. That's why I had to try. Over the years, I've collected a lot of expired film, most from the 80s and 90s. But these 4 rolls were much older. 3 rolls expired in 1956, including 2 rare color films that are nearly impossible to process today. And the oldest roll I could find, a Kodak Super XX that expired in 1946, meaning it was produced more than 80 years ago. To give the film the best chance, I used my trusty Canon F1, calculated the exposure to compensate for the extreme age, and shot everything at the lowest ISO possible. After finishing the rolls, I went to one of the best labs in France and followed Christophe, the technician, as he developed them entirely by hand. We started with the rare Ensco color film. I was nervous. I worried the colors would look strange, or that I hadn't exposed the film properly. But I wasn't ready for what came next. After an hour of careful work, it was finally time to check the results. The entire roll came out completely blank. The disappointment was real, but I still had 3 more rolls. Next was the second color roll. Once again, not a single image. I was livid. That left the 2 black and white rolls. First was the oldest of them all, the Kodak Super XX from 1946. Christophe looked at the film before breaking my heart again. There was nothing on it. I was devastated. Hours of shooting for nothing. Finally, we developed the last roll, another Kodak Super XX expired in 1956. And at last, there was something. After scanning, I could just barely make out a few faint frames. Out of 20 exposures, only a handful had an image at all. Well, that was depressing. When I got home, out of frustration, I decided to rescan the oldest roll myself. The 1946 film that was supposed to be completely empty. I used a Valoy 45mm system with a macro lens. And that's when I spotted something. But before I show you what I found, I need to tell you what really blew my mind during this experiment. You might not know this, but film is alive.
It's alive! Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Not in the film is not dead sense, but literally alive. Because it's organic. The photosensitive chemicals are actually held in place using gelatin made from animal bones. Film had been manufactured the same way for almost a century. Even today, Kodak, Ilford, Fujifilm, and other brands still use gelatin, because nothing else matches its chemical properties. Kodak was deeply involved in the gelatin supply chain, even owning the Eastman Gelatin Company manufacturing plant, and attempting to control the quality of the cattle bones used. So if you're a vegan and a film shooter, sorry, I may have just ruined your day. The only way to preserve film is to freeze it. Otherwise, heat, humidity, and time slowly destroy it. That's why film older than 1960 is usually too far gone. And you'll never know how it was stored. Rare stocks are even worse. For example, Ensco color film was so unstable and toxic, it had to be processed by Ensco themselves. Today, that's nearly impossible, which is why our rolls came back totally empty. So shooting film more than 20 years past expiration is a lottery. The sensitivity shifts so much that you can barely shoot outside of full sunlight. And even then, the results are usually unusable. So what did I find on the oldest roll of the lot? I found faint, ghost-like images hiding in the emulsion. Proof that the film had indeed captured light. But just barely. Those images made me happy, because it meant I hadn't lost everything. But I also noticed something unusual. The pictures were covered with tiny dots. Those weren't dust. They were the gelatin itself, breaking down and leaving microscopic holes as it decomposed. For me, it was sad and frustrating to realize that almost everything I shot on those rolls is gone forever. So here's my conclusion. Shooting really old film sucks. The hope of getting magical, vintage-looking images is high, but the reality is almost always disappointment. You spend money, time, and effort and end up with almost nothing. So, should you try it? If the film was frozen and stored properly and you go with zero expectation, then yes, it can be a fun experiment. But don't use it for anything important. Not weddings, not baby photos, not once-in-a-lifetime trips. If you want memories that will last, use fresh film or digital. Otherwise, you'll risk coming back with almost nothing.